name's Stephanie Hope and I'm a Senior Associate Lawyer here at Argent Law in Melbourne, Victoria. I'm joined today by Mr Simon Mannion, who's a licensed property inspector at ResiCert Property Inspections, also here in Melbourne. Welcome, Simon. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Stephanie. Good to be here.
Now, we have plenty of questions to ask for you today. So firstly, what do building inspectors do?
Good question. Building inspectors, the catchphrase that we have is essentially we provide peace of mind. So when a property is put up for sale, the vendor or the potential purchaser would call us and ask to do a property inspection, timber pest inspection, a vendor inspection, just to give them more information.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that you're a licensed building inspector. What is the licensing program?
The licensing program, essentially, we go through about 300 hours of training in order to achieve the Australian standards. Australian standards is the property inspection logbook, if you like. We don't inspect to a VBA standards, we inspect to an Australian standard for building inspections.
Right, and I'm detecting a bit of an accent there. Have you had experience in Australia and overseas as well?
I've worked in a couple of countries, originally from England and lived in South Africa and the US. Mm-hmm. I've been here for the last 10 years.
Right, and before building inspections, what were your qualifications?
I've got my qualifications are in mechanical engineering. Mm-hmm. I've got a background with recruitment engineering, but I've been doing this for about 2 years now.
Oh, fantastic. Now, why should people have a building inspector, whether they're the seller, you refer to as the vendor, yeah, or the buyer of property?
Essentially, again, it's that peace of mind. When you're looking at purchasing a property, it's a significant investment. So you want to be sure that you're going to be making the right decisions. You're going to be sure that you're putting your family into a safe and secure environment. And obviously, it has a financial knock-on, so you want to make the right decisions.
Right. But isn't building inspection compulsory in all states of Australia?
It's not compulsory in Victoria. I believe it's compulsory in ACT. There's different legislations there. It's advisable in Victoria, and obviously I'm a building inspector, so I'm going to advise you to get a building inspection.
Okay. And what are the common problems you see in properties when you're doing inspections for buyers or sellers?
A lot of the inspections that we do, depending on the age of the property, you're going to get excessive moisture, you're going to get leaky roofs, you're going to get stains in ceilings, you're going to get cracks in walls, which could be the result of either trees or soil. We've had a particularly interesting last couple of years where there's been droughts, there's been dry periods, so it affects buildings quite significantly.
Right, and so what I'm hearing you say is that you could be buying a property that looks absolutely beautiful and displayed very nicely, and there could actually be physical defects in the property you're buying, that massive investment.
Correct. Now, looking at the physical defects, you would look at properties that have been recently remediated or renovated can sometimes be a bit misleading, because they've been painted recently, they've been adjusted, but we look beyond that. We look at the structure, we look at the foundations, we look at the roof structure, the roof covering. So there's a lot of aspects that we go through when we inspect the property.
Right, and of course people go along to inspections or open homes and they see a beautiful house that they'd be interested in purchasing. If someone wants a property inspection, how long can you turn around that report?
The report itself, the inspection, depending on the size of the property, would take probably about an hour and 15 minutes for an average 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom property. Apartments, probably about an hour. There's an element of diligence that we go through, so we apply the same sort of process to each property regardless of the size. The turnaround is generally 48 hours, so we like to under-promise and over-deliver. We'd be looking at getting that to our customers within that period of time.
Right, and is there a significant difference between the work you're doing as an inspector when you're inspecting and evaluating a apartment or a flat versus a house on land?
There's a flow that we go through when you're looking at apartments, or you're looking at multi-storey apartments or units or townhouses, as you would go through with a similar flow that you would go through with a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom that would be on timber stumps or concrete stumps or on a slab. So the elements are the same. We go through a process which allows us to take note of every aspect of the property.
And I guess we are commonly thinking of buyers wanting building inspections because they're about to buy a new property. Do you do a lot of work for sellers or even landlords who want to ensure that the property they're offering on the market for rental is good quality for their tenants?
Yeah, there's a duty of care as far as property managers is concerned, but we do. The significant part of our business will be pre-purchase inspections. There will be the vendor inspection, whereby the seller who's putting his property up for sale wants to know what's wrong with the property prior to him putting it on the market so he can fix it. Or there would be a pre-purchase inspection, whereby whether it be an auction or a sale, we would go in ahead of an auction and inspect the property.
And do people sometimes ask you whether a property is worth paying a certain amount of money? And if they do ask you that question, what do you say?
It's a great question. I've had that particular instance this last couple of days where I've got one customer who's looking at inspecting 2 properties that were going on auction on Saturday. It's very difficult for me to put an opinion forward. I'm looking at a physical condition of a property on the day, and trying to remain independent of what it is. I report the conditions and I report what I see.
Because you're not a real estate agent or an auctioneer or anything like that. Final question. I'm sure you've seen some horrible situations when doing inspections over the many years that you've done it. Can you give us some examples, or one really great example of something shocking you've seen when inspecting a property?
Horrible, yeah. Whether it's horrible or not, I think, again, we remain independent, so remain emotionless about the properties that we're looking at. But I think, I've been in some properties where a particular property manager asked me to look at a property which was the tenants reported there were some significant cracks. The cracks were about 25 to 30 millimetres. There was water coming from the drains and from the gutters, which was creating and compromising the foundations, which was creating and compromising the walls. So, there's other factors that come into play, but subsidence, settlement are generally significant factors that we find.
Right, fantastic. Well, Simon, you've certainly given me a lot to think about today, and I'm sure our viewers as well. So thank you for joining us today. We'll link below this video to your contact details for anyone who's interested. Once again, thank you to Simon Mannion from ResiCert Property Inspections here in Melbourne, and I'm Stephanie Hope from Argent Law.
Thanks a lot.